Right, this one is FPL player rankings where myself and George from Ingenuity Fantasy make top 10 lists for 6 different categories: budget defenders, premium defenders, budget mids, premium mids, budget forwards, premium forwards. We're going to discuss all 6 of our lists, so let's get straight into it. Okay, welcome back. So, getting straight on with it, and we're getting into defenders. So, budget defenders first. Now, you've got Jed Spence at number 3 in your list. He's not in my list at all. I do like Spurs defence, but talk me through Jed Spence.
So, yeah, I mean, last week it was a bit of concern about his minutes. Now, he did get the start again. But, yeah, I think for now, there's some results you do worry about and some results you don't worry about. And I mentioned last week, a 1-0 loss to Bournemouth, even though it might, sort of not force Thomas Frank into any changes, but it might make him start thinking about changes. He clearly just rode it out with Spence again. And, Spurs played fantastically. So I think for now, we're back on that track of, Spurs are, back in the win column. They're playing well. I just don't see him getting rotated out now. Especially while he himself is playing well as well. And, as you mentioned last week, that England call-up, he's just got lots of stuff going for him at the moment. And, it would feel quite odd dropping a player just after they get an England call-up.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, I do really like him. I think he's a great option. He doesn't make my list just because I think if we were looking at like a 1 week sample, with him, it's someone that I think on a 1 week sample, I really like him. I just think 2 or 3 weeks down the line, we don't know where the doggy will be, whether a doggy comes in. Like over 5 weeks, I'm just not huge on him, but I do think that on a game by game basis, he's brilliant because now, I can't see him not starting.
Yeah, so and I think exactly, and I think that's all it is to me because as we said before, their fixtures are just that good that any sort of nailed Spurs cheap defender should be near the top of this list. So the fact he's not nailed, is obviously, the fact he's not completely nailed is where the doubt is. But just because of the upside with all of those fixtures, that's why he finds himself where he is.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why Van de Ven is at the top of your list, pretty high in mine. I mean, he's 5th in mine, but I still really, really like him. I just slightly prefer the guys above him. But yeah, the Spurs defence just looks pretty solid right now. West Ham weren't great, obviously, but the Spurs defence does look good.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's worth bearing in mind, the reason I put Van de Ven there was because I did foresee him scoring this goal. He was there as a goal threat. But no, seriously, I mean, it's basically, I think, the Bournemouth result, as I said before, the Bournemouth result wasn't that scary. And Tottenham just look, they look great. The fixtures are there. So there's just not much to dislike about Van de Ven, especially considering he's that nailed.
Yeah, I completely agree, to be honest. I mean, the top kind of 5 in my list and the top 5-ish in your list, I just think are all very, very good options. I do prefer Senesi just because the defensive contributions just seem like almost close to a given for him at this point. Like he just seems to be getting the most weeks, which I think is a bit more reliable than a clean sheet. But obviously you get less points for it. So, it swings and roundabouts really. But yeah, admittedly, they're both great. I just prefer the consistency of defensive contribution points from Senesi.
Yeah, and Bournemouth have the 3rd lowest expected goals conceded this year in the Prem. So it's not even just the defensive contributions you're after with Senesi. I mean, they've got pretty good fixtures. I'm not really scared of any of those fixtures from a defensive standpoint. And then also coupled with the fact they've actually got a really good defensive setup, there's just not much to dislike about Senesi. Really, it's hard to go wrong.
Yeah, I think we were potentially, I mean, rightly so, we were probably put off at the start of the season because of the amount of players they'd lost in Huijsen, Zabarnyi, Kirkez, but it seems like it hasn't really affected them too much.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, clearly they've just got some magic. It's a next man up sort of policy over there. I think the organisation over there will always be more important. They just plug in the next player and they just seem to pick it up and go. So, yeah, a lot to like about Bournemouth's defence for sure.
Yeah, completely agree. So, and then the only other player to mention really is Anderson, given that he's pretty high on my list, but nowhere in your list now.
Yeah. So I think, obviously he did get a big return last game. But I think for me, those fixtures, I mean, I mentioned it before with Anderson, those fixtures are just quite scary. I mean, within their next five, they've got Arsenal, Newcastle, Villa, Bournemouth, who look good. It's, if you are targeting cheap defenders, there are just cheaper defenders with much better runs of fixtures than Anderson. Fulham, they do have slightly better defense. They're about mid-table for expected goals conceded, but I'm just not moved enough by those fixtures that I'd consider moving for him over someone else, and that's basically where I'm at with him.
Yeah, that's kind of fair. The fixtures are rough. For me, it's more of a defensive contribution play. I think he's hit it in the last 3 games. So, and also, as I mentioned on these videos before, Fulham defence, I think, is just a bit underrated in general. So, I've still got him pretty high for that reason. But yeah, the fixtures aren't great in all fairness. But moving on to premium defenders now. So, Livramento is 5th on your list.
Yeah.
So let's hear it from the Newcastle fan as to why we should be paying 5.1 million for Livramento.
So, I mean, for me, it's firstly, I want to start with, I think Newcastle's defence is severely underrated. We actually have the lowest expected goals conceded this season of any team in the Premier League. Our defense has been really, really resolute. Even the goals we have conceded, we've hardly been battered. People have hardly, banged on the door and carved us open. So I'm very optimistic about our clean sheet potential. That's one place to start. I'm also quite optimistic about Livramento's capacity to get forward. He loves picking the ball up. He loves driving into the opposition half. He loves putting balls into the box. Those sorts of things just generally bode well. And, also aside from the Arsenal fixture within the next 5, I mean, there's actually some quite good fixtures there, with Fulham, Brighton, Nottingham Forest at home. Now's as good a time as any to play Nottingham Forest. So I think, there's just three different sort of levels I like about him. That's pretty much what it is, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't hate him in that I think if he's the one Newcastle fullback that you would go for, given what's happened so far in terms of who's played. But it's the next 2 fixtures. Arsenal is obviously one of them, and Bournemouth away just isn't a fixture right now that's particularly good for defensive options, I'd say, given mainly how well Semenyo and Evan Nilsson are playing, but the team in general. Yeah. So, where else are we looking? Lacroix. You don't have Lacroix in your top 10 at all. So what's the reasoning behind that?
So again, that's kind of just like a fixtures play. They've got Liverpool in game week 6, and then they've got Arsenal sort of game week 9, and then they've also got Bournemouth in game week 8, who we just spoke about being, But I mean, the problem is every time people will write off Palace's defence, they're going to keep another clean sheet. I think they've kept 3 out of 4 clean sheets this season, if I'm not mistaken. So, there's, I think they're top 7 for expected goals conceded. There's just so much to like about Palace's defence. So, I mean, he's only omitted based on fixtures, but in all fairness, I mean, their defence has shown that you could almost back them going into some of these fixtures. So he's definitely one who could easily see himself climb back up my list. I think I was just a bit scared by the fixtures. Yeah,
not only have they kept 3 out of 4 clean sheets in the league, they've also kept 2 clean sheets in Europe as well. So it's 5 out of 6.
Yeah,
in all competitions, which is a joke, to be fair. One of them was Chelsea as well, which are showing to be one of the better attacks. The fixtures, are a bit of a mixed bag in all fairness. Like West Ham this week is obviously a very good fixture. Everton in 7 isn't horrific, but then the rest are a bit rough. But again, for me, he's just a bit of a DEFCON beast as well. So I like him for that reason.
Yeah. And, DEFCONs, he will always gobble them up. I think this man is, I mean, he was touted at the start of the season and he's lived up to it as far as the DEFCON hype goes. I think for me, I just kind of ideologically, I kind of lean more towards, clean sheets is king, or if there's potential attacking returns there. But DEFCONs are proving more and more that they can actually just give a really nice floor for some of these defenders. So I think, as time goes on, I wouldn't be surprised if you see, me in particular start paying more of a credence to these DEFCONs and people like Lacroix definitely coming up the list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the rest of our lists aren't too dissimilar. I mean, Gvardiol comes back into our lists now. Konate's in our list. Romero's in our lists. So the rest is pretty similar. The top 4 kind of speaks for itself as well, although we've got them in different orders.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just Munoz. I mean, like I said before, those Palace the Palace defense is, excellent at the minute. So the fact that you can get someone with that attacking output as part of that defense in the form of Munoz, I mean, Munoz is like literally you couldn't build a more ideal profile for a fantasy for an FPL defender than Munoz.
Yeah, every single week you see a highlight of him as like the highest player for Palace. So he's just carrying on doing what he was doing last season. There's not too much different, really. So that rounds up the premium defenders and the defenders. We'll now have a look at the midfielders. Right, before we get into the midfielders, I just wanted to touch on ingenuityfantasy.com. The link is in the description to the video. All sorts of cool stuff on there. They've got articles on captains, differentials, wildcards, free hits, all sorts of good stuff. They've got the player rankings that we're talking about today on there. They've got cool football quizzes like trivia stuff. And they've also got the transfer wizard, which is a really cool feature, completely free. The whole website is completely free. You basically put in what position you need, how much you've got to spend, and it will give you a ranked list in order of players to consider. So make sure you check that out. Ingenuityfantasy.com. The link is in the description. Let's get on to the mids. Right, onto the midfielders now, and we'll start with the budget midfielders as always. So Mohamed Kudus stays at the top of both of our lists. He's second in mine, first in yours. He is one of the most transferred out midfielders this week, and I don't get it at all. So let's talk about him a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what more evidence that you need that there's tons of goals in this Tottenham side. You don't. The idea of being reactionary, he didn't return this game, so I'm going to transfer him out. When a team is playing that well and the fixtures are that good, that's what you base your decisions off. If you wanted it based off returns, there'd be a load of people with Richarlison in their team who would now have to then waste the transfer getting him out. I mean, Kudus is incredibly direct. His XG from last game was 0.6. If you continue getting XGs of 0.6 a game and you're only 6.6 million, that just offers fantastic value. So if you do have Kudus, I would not panic that he hasn't returned. Like, I would be shocked if it isn't coming. He's still super direct. Just don't overreact. Selling any Tottenham player going into that fixture run is utter madness, I think. So, just at least at minimum, hold on to him till the end of this great run of fixtures.
Yeah, unless you're looking at a minutes risk, which, I mean, a better example even is Brennan Johnson. So people were buying Brennan Johnson over Kudus after the first 2 weeks. I remember us saying on here, Kudus is better because Johnson will be the first one out. Mm-hmm. Johnson was the first one out. So Johnson is no good, admittedly. Yeah. Kudus, there's absolutely no reason to sell him. He hasn't got returns in the last 3, but he's doing everything that you want a 6.6 million midfielder to do. He's on corners. His numbers are good. His minutes are fantastic. Yeah. So there's just no reason to sell him. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a similar story with Reinders for me. I mean, he again is in the top 5 transferred out midfielders, and it just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's some people are super, super hot on Reinders. I like Reinders as an option as well, to be honest. And the transferring him out, I think, you're right. It's very similar to Kudus. What are you transferring him out for? The fixtures aren't bad at all. He was getting in fantastic spaces. His underlying numbers are great. Like, I wouldn't panic on Reinders at all. It's also the minutes are great. I mean, it's really important. Again, like a sort of a case in point for all of this is, these are budget midfielders, and it's important to remember these are budget midfielders. If we're talking about, like a Palmer or a Saka or a Salah not returning 3 games in a row, then even if their underlying numbers are good, what you're after is return. So I do understand there being a slight, a bit more of a panic there. But when you're talking about budget midfielders, and especially one who costs 5.7 million, who's getting himself in those sorts of positions at, that sort of price with those sort of fixtures in that sort of team, I think it's at minimum you shouldn't be wasting a transfer on him. It's crazy.
It's baffling to me. I mean, the thing we were worried about with him pre-season was minutes. He's played 90 minutes in all 4 games. The minutes could not be better. Yeah, literally couldn't be better. Yeah. Not only that, but he's playing in attacking roles in every single one of these. He even played with Foden in this game and was still ridiculously attacking. Yeah, he he missed a one-on-one, which obviously isn't great, but he got a one-on-one.
Yeah.
He was also the guy when Haaland missed that chance where he hit the post from basically an open goal. Reinders was basically stood right next to him as it happened. The only thing, there is one thing that I do think that it might not go for him is obviously there's Champions League rotation potentially now. But apart from that, there is literally no good reason to sell him. I'd be buying him. Maybe not for this week, but next week, if you don't have him, I'd be buying him. It's Burnley, Brentford, Everton, Villa. What more do you want?
Yeah, and the idea that someone who's 5.7 million has taken the 7th most shots in the Prem and people are transferring him out, there is a real sort of communication error there. So I agree with you. I don't understand why people are panicking on Reinders at all.
Yeah, agreed. And so Caicedo jumps in yours up to third in the list.
Yeah. I think at minimum, but if DEFCONs weren't capped, this guy would be an absolute monster. I think last game he had 23. The most recent one he had 17. You're basically guaranteed at minimum 4 points from Caicedo every game. Now, what we're also seeing is him finding himself in slightly more advanced positions as well. He's registering way higher. Previously, his XGs genuinely sat at the 0.0 somethings. Whereas what we're seeing this season is he's actually getting in and around areas to take shots on, around the edge of the box. And, that's resulting in an actual decent amount of attacking opportunities. And that's been reflected in the fact he's managed to get 2 goals already this season. Do I think he can continue at a goal every 2 games? Definitely not. I don't. We're not buying him for goals. But if he's someone who can consistently get you a floor of 4 points, and then every now and then chip in with some bonus points, or chip in with a goal, chip in with an assist, I think he's just a fantastic option at 5.5 million.
Yeah, his floor is pretty low because of that DEFCON. I mean, I don't think, obviously, he's not going to carry on scoring a goal every other game. His underlines won't carry on at that either, I wouldn't imagine. The reason he's not on my list as well is because the fixtures are pretty rough, and I just think the more expensive players are a bit better, but he is definitely a very good option at that price. There's no denying that at all.
Yeah.
So that rounds up budget midfielders. On to premiums now. And the first player that I want to talk about is Xavi Simons, because he started in his first game for Spurs, and I thought he looked pretty good, to be honest. And obviously, any part of this Spurs attack at the moment is pretty good to me. That's why he's jumped to 6 in my list.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, getting the start straight away, he looks pretty attacking. He was part of a lot of what Spurs were doing well. I think also one thing he does come with, he just comes with that attacking pedigree. Xavi Simons is not a small name. He's been in and around, sort of Europe, the Netherlands team, Champions League player. We know what you're getting from Simons, and that he's more than got it in him to score goals and get assists. And I actually think he slots really well into this Tottenham team, because Tottenham, they like to sort of chop and change that sort of 3 that sits just behind the striker, and Simons, can play any of those roles if needed. So I think there's even with sort of the rotations that will be happening, I think it's hard to see Simons missing out a player of that quality.
Yeah, completely agree. I really like him. Moving on to Wirtz. So, Wirtz has finally dropped in my list. I mean, mainly because we saw he was high up for me because of good fixtures. If he's not going to even be remotely involved against Burnley, then he can't be that high. But I'll let you. I'll let you talk about Wirtz.
Yeah, well, I mean, this one's for Robert. Shout out to you, Robert. I mean, obviously, I was really rooting for Wirtz this game. Really looking to sort of be able to back you up, but unfortunately, I just can't. Again, what we saw. And, there'll be Liverpool fans. Liverpool fans really have got the PR machine going. I could see them on Twitter. They're inventing new stats that he's doing really well. I think I saw runs into the box for a midfielder stat put on Sky Sports. It's the propaganda has got out of control. I think what we are seeing, I've said it before, it's quite it's quite impressive to look that bad in a team that is scoring that many goals. He's clearly just physically, he's just not there yet. Of course, we know he's a player who's got quality. We know he can be a baller, but there's no point in denying that right there at this current moment in time, he's just not up to the speed of the Premier League. And from a fantasy Premier League standpoint, until he gets up to that speed, until I see it with my own eyes, I'm going to be doubting him. It's one thing being bad in a bad team, but it's another thing being bad in a good team. And I think he's, 2 more games like this, and he's knocking on the door of getting dropped, if I'm being honest. So, at this point, he's even a minute's risk. So that's why he's at 10.
Yeah, no, it's got nothing to do with a Newcastle fan talking
Absolutely
about
not.
it. Fan,
Absolutely not. Absolutely
yeah.
not. I will. It is making for a really fun hate watch every single game, though. I will say that. So, just prove it. Like at this, I'm just waiting to be shut up about it. Do you know what I mean? And as yet, he is doing nothing to shut me up. So I'm going to continue talking.
It's fair. He isn't. So the last player we'll talk about here as well is Palmer. So Palmer obviously came on, scored a goal, and actually I thought he looked absolutely brilliant when he came on. Admittedly, prior to this game and even at the end of last season, he had struggles a little bit, let's say, but I thought he looked absolutely brilliant when he came on against Brentford.
Yeah, I mean, even a brief cameo, I think a lot of people, I understand people's impatience with Palmer, especially coming off the back of last season, but, we do know the quality is there. We do know he can ball on his day. So, yeah, if Robert, as I said before, if you wanted the difference between a Palmer and a Wirtz, it's that Palmer has done it in the Prem, and Wirtz hasn't done that yet. So, Palmer, it's more waiting to come good rather than wondering if he will, because I think the quality is just there for Palmer.
Right. Enough about Wirtz. Enough about midfielders. That's all for midfielders. So we'll get onto the forwards now. Okay, so we'll start with budget forwards, and there really is nothing to talk about here. I mean, Thiago's top by default. I mean, we can talk about the fact that Strand Larsen is still 4th on our list, even though he's probably not even going to be fit to play the next game, just because the pool of budget forwards is horrific.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to put it lightly. It's such a stark contrast to last year, where the budget forwards, there was an absolute plethora of great options. Like Vissers and Raul was on fire, Strand Larsen was on fire. There was Welbeck was on fire. There's so much to love, and then this season, it's just honestly a graveyard. I don't know. Thiago and Beto are the only ones you could even marginally maybe think about.
Yeah, I will say that Beto's XG, or non-pen XG at least, has actually been really good this season, to be fair to him. It's just whether he keeps that place and we don't see Barry come in. Similar to Muniz, really. Like, if he keeps starting, then he's quite good, but he's never really going to get 90 with Raul Jimenez around. So, yeah, I'm not even sure if it's really worth talking about anyone else on this list, to be honest.
I don't think so.
Yeah, okay. On to premiums. So, I mean, our lists are actually very, very similar here.
Yeah.
So Watkins is someone that needs to be talked about. I actually own Watkins in my team. It's been as bad a start as you could imagine from Aston Villa in general, given they've not scored a goal yet. And Watkins, he's already gone down to 8.8 million. The problem being, they've got really nice fixtures coming up. So selling is a tough thing to do. But if you owned Watkins, would you sell him this week with Sunderland?
No. I wouldn't sell Watkins. I think if Villa had neutral fixtures, I would sell him. Yeah. But, if you are going to sell Watkins, you would only sell him for a striker that you'd love to be playing against Sunderland and Burnley as well, if that makes any sense. So I don't get the, I definitely wouldn't move off Watkins for now. Following that Burnley fixture, if he hasn't got at least a return or two after that Burnley fixture, then he's absolutely a sell, because at that point he is just cursed and you'd have to move off.
So even if he blanks against Sunderland, you would still hold him for game week 6 and game week 7 in Fulham and Burnley?
I mean, yeah, I think I would, because it's just so hard to turn those fixtures down. I think what we're also seeing from him, we're not seeing a major minutes risk or anything like that. He's still getting 90s, 82 minutes last game's essentially, a near on full game. So, we don't need to worry about the minutes. We don't need to worry about him getting dropped, and, he just has produced in the Prem before. So I will be more surprised if he doesn't return in the next 3 games than I will be if he does.
Of course.
That's basically where I land, and why I just would hold him for that Burnley game. But then it's Tottenham, City, and Liverpool. I mean, even if he returns, I might sell him anyway for those three fixtures. Those are absolutely brutal. So
he's gone after 7 regardless. Yeah,
yeah.
I think that there is a world where you could sell him after Sunderland. Just because, so the reason I wouldn't sell him this week is 1, because the fixtures are good. 2, because the person you're going to want to buy from Watkins is probably Gyökeres, right?
Yeah.
Gyökeres plays City this week, which makes that transfer completely pointless. However, next week it is a lot more viable because Gyökeres plays West Ham, maybe, I think.
Yeah, he's got West Ham. Yeah.
Who's obviously just looked awful. We don't need to go into that, but he's definitely someone you want from game week 6 onwards, which makes me think that the Watkins move Watkins to Gyökeres could happen if he blanks against Sunderland.
Yeah, I think I mean you've hit the nail on the head there. I think the issue is that moving off of Watkins, if there was a great fantastic option to move off Watkins who has similar fixtures now, then you can think about doing it. But if you are thinking about the move to Gyökeres, then you're right. Game week 7, Arsenal then have West Ham, Fulham, Palace, Burnley, and Sunderland in their next 5. You want to target Gyökeres for those fixtures regardless. And if you do find yourself missing out value-wise because of Watkins' price drop and, you can't move to Gyökeres, then someone like a João Pedro is also a great move because following that game week 7 fixture, Chelsea then have Forest, Sunderland, Spurs, Wolves, and then Burnley. So, 3 green fixtures out of 5 for João Pedro as well. So, if you can't afford Gyökeres, then that would also be an opportune moment to move to João Pedro. So there is... Yeah, if you were looking to hold Watkins, you can definitely hold him for the Burnley game, and then you have 2 great options to move off of him after that. So, I think that's probably the play if you do have Watkins, or that's at least what I'd be doing.
Yeah, that's fair. So the only other point to touch on probably here is the Isak Ekitike situation. I'm sure you'd love to talk about Isak. So
I think it's hard to say what time Isak is going to come into the team. But I think we did see in a press conference, Slot mentioned he was still getting him up to speed a bit. So I don't think we'll be expecting him back I don't think he'll get the start. The next game. I think they'll still roll with Ekitike for the next game. I think the game that we will likely see Isak feature in first will be that Palace game in game week 6. And whether that's off the bench, whether that's a start and then an early substitution, I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think we can expect maybe it's a bit soon to expect a full 90 of him for that game. He wasn't training all summer, as some of us know all too well. So I think it will take him a bit of time to get up to speed. So I wouldn't move for Isak just yet. If you do have Ekitike, I would imagine he'll start against Everton. So now's not the time to move to Isak. I think we probably just have to wait and see when the best time to move is. But I would be cautious about transferring Isak in this week for sure.
Yeah, for me, I don't think you can't go anywhere near Isak, in my opinion, until he starts a game. But I wouldn't, at least anyway. I know that people might want to try and get ahead of it, but I just don't really think that that's a good play, personally. If you've got Ekitike, then you probably do just hold for now. I mean, again, he is of that similar price where if you've got a little bit in the bank, you can keep Ekitike this week and then potentially move up to Gyökeres next week. So I think that you hold Ekitike certainly for this week if you've got him, and you don't go near Isak, basically.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think that's, Ekitike, we know when he does play, he's an absolute baller, and that's proven. And, if Liverpool fans are to be believed, then there is also a world where, you maybe see Ekitike and Isak starting alongside each other. Personally, I don't know how much we can rely on that, but, to say that's not a possibility would just be wrong. So I think it's definitely worth holding on to Ekitike until we see how that situation shakes out. Because in the meantime, especially with Everton at home, there's just plenty of goals on the table as well. Yeah,
completely agree, to be fair. And I don't even think, like you say, I don't think Ekitike all of a sudden gets no minutes. So even with Isak in the team. So completely agree. That rounds up the premium forwards and the forwards. So if you've got any questions, any comments on our list, then drop them in the comments below. Make sure you do like the video. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're checking out ingenuityfantasy.com, as I mentioned earlier. But that's all for this one. We will be back next week with player rankings for game week 6.